How's it going, guys? So, as many of you would have seen as you launch the game, there's a pop out and telling you Tragodia is coming in actually tomorrow. And yes, I'm rushing this video a tiny little bit because I didn't realize he was coming this soon. And I got out of work and I realized, oh my god, he's coming tomorrow? Wow! So yes, here I am making another should you pull video. And this time around, there's no like, oh, you want to know the answer of you should you pull? No. You definitely should pull Tragodia. He is very important, and like there's all these limited banners tempting you to save whatnot. No, trust me, you want to pull Tragodia, and I'll go into why that is right now. So here we have Tragodia, the ritualist, or can you call him Phantom Altar? So, as a ritualist, you would think, well, elemental damage pairs well with a primal caster. That will happen down the road. But right now, he is the ritualist for nerve damage. I don't know the precise translation for that yet, but I'll just call it nerve damage. And the effect is once the bar is reached, it will deal 6,000 elemental damage immediately and give the enemy who has the elemental burst 3 layers of paralyze. So what does paralyze do? Paralyze is when they try to do a normal attack, it will stop them, if I recall correctly. So what this does is really good control, like survivability, because 3 times stopping them from attacking, and then 6,000 damage like instantaneously is actually pretty good because of how fast it is to trigger. With some other elemental damage, it's like damage over time, right? This is just instantaneous 6,000, so this is actually really good as well. So let's take a look at his talents. So obviously you will see me with module level 3, and I would highly recommend so for Tragodia as well. He is really good. Module level 3 is worth it. He is still very usable without modules, but with modules you do get a tiny bit of extra, how should I say, debuff when it comes to his elemental damage. But if you don't want to, you can just use his skill 2. He's still perfectly fine for that. So let's take a look at his trait. So upon dealing damage, whenever he deals elemental damage, when he deals elemental damage to elite and boss enemies, the elemental damage is increased by 18%. What I mean by elemental damage, I mean the elemental bar damage, not the elemental damage as in true damage kind of damage. It's so complicated. We should really have a proper word for that. But I confuse myself all the time. Really sorry about that. His first talent is that whenever he attacks a target, he will bring 30% of his attack as nerve damage, neural damage, and for all enemies surrounding that enemy. So enemies that is within the 1.8 tile radius of the target will also take 20% of that attack. 20% of his attack as nerve damage. So it's like AoE elemental damage kind of a thing. It's really good. And with module level 3, that will increase by another 3%. So 20% to 23%, and 30% to 33%. Now, his second talent is that when he's on the field, when all the enemies that are on the field and is taking elemental burst, will have up to minus 20 attack speed with module, or minus 24 attack speed with module plus pot 5. Areas that are within his enemies within his attack area, they will take 90 elemental bar like nerve damage whenever they take a normal attack from Tragodia. So basically what this is saying is the 30% from 30% or 20% of his attack from his first talent, and a further 90 fixed damage from his second talent. So he is really good at dealing nerve damage. How is that so hard for me to say? Alrighty, so that will be Tragodia's trait and talents. So let's take a look at his skill 1. Tragodia skill 1 is your typical AFK skill, so it is a offense recovered SP type of skill. At M3 it will become a 2 SP skill, so 2 hits, and that's probably the biggest reason why I didn't choose to use this skill, because it's usually very limiting when you need enemies to come in. The effect is that the next time he attacks, he will deal double attack, each equivalent to up to 150% of his attack as arch damage, and bind target for 3 seconds. When enemies are within the bind duration, enemy will take 1.8 times the nerve damage, so this is the elemental bar damage, and he will prioritize enemies that are not in elemental burst duration. So you can basically think of this as Virtuoso skill 1, but if you already have Virtuoso skill 1 for AFK, you probably won't need this skill for AFK. And yeah, there's nothing really special with this skill, to be honest. And Virtuoso skill 1 also provides a bit more damage. This is more like survive, like control, so the paralyze, and a bit of damage. So if you want to prioritize damage, just go with Virtuoso. And yeah, damage is what you want to prioritize when it comes to AFK type of skills. So you really don't have to bother with this skill, I would say. So that is Tragodia skill 1. Next up is his skill 2, and this is his main skill for the longest time. So with Tragodia skill 2, he will activate it. He will have increased his own attack speed by 35. This is a infinite duration skill. So as you can see, it takes 25 seconds to load up, and then it will last basically forever. His first talent will have a larger splash area, so from 1.3 tile radius to 1.5 tile radius. And then during his skill duration, he can have a summon that can lure enemy into the direction where the summon is deployed, which is usually which is on the ground, and it will prioritize enemies that are elite or bosses, and it will make the enemy want to go to the tile that is deployed for 10 seconds. So here you can see how I've been using him to use bait Patriot. But what is really nice is that you can make bosses go through like high ground tiles. So it's not just limited to walking to where it is, because once an enemy reaches that where the summon is, the summon will immediately explode and deal slow to all surrounding enemies for 6 seconds. And during that 6 second slow, they will take 150% of Tragodia's damage as arch damage once every 0.5 seconds, so 12 times in total, and 25% of his attack as, what is that called? Nerve damage. Yes. So as you can imagine, place it down. Once the summon bursts, enemy will go take a lot of nerve damage and have like elemental burst, take a lot of damage from that as well, and also get control. What is really nice is you can manually retreat the summon, so you don't have to wait for the enemy to actually walk towards it. Or what you can do is you can put it behind like a high ground tile, so the enemy will have to walk like a really long path towards it, and by the time they reach it, or even before they even reach it, the summon would have like ended, because it's been 10 seconds, and it will burst itself. So it doesn't have to be precisely 10 seconds, and it doesn't have to be precisely when the enemy reaches where it is. Now, because it does attract 4 enemies, you have to be aware that sometimes there will be enemies that are just closer to it, and those enemies will reach where the summon is earlier, and that way you will get a burst early, even though, like, let's say you're trying to bait Patriot and then some random dog just runs by and hits it. Then in that situation, Patriot won't be walking that far before he walks back to his normal path, right? So you got to be aware of that. Also, the summon has a 25-second redeployment time. So if you think about it, it takes 10 seconds for enemy to walk in the path that you wanted. It takes another 10 seconds for it to go back. There's also a 6-second slow. So it takes about the same time for the enemy to travel back to where it is, or even less, depending on how slow the enemy is, because You don't want the enemy to reach it, right? So what will happen is, with this skill 2, you can basically perma-stall an enemy. Permanently, basically. Now, this is very, very powerful, and I will explain it down the road when I talk about how you use him in like all different situations. But trust me when I say that once you get him in IS, you will not lose the run until the boss stage. Guaranteed. He is such a simple to use operator, and he's so powerful with his skill 2. This is the main skill that you will be using for the longest time from now on, until like something happens in about 6 months time. We'll talk about that when that happens, but for now, trust me, M3 skill 2, and that's all you need for now, and that is skill 2 for Tragodia. And at last we have skill 3, the hardest skill to explain. If you look at the skill description for this in English, you can see how long, how complicated this skill is. Same with skill 2, but yeah, these are really complicated skills. So first of all, this skill is manually triggered and will last 30 seconds. Upon activating the skill, Tragodia's skill range will attack to, as shown on screen, this range. His attack will increase by 125%, and he will prioritize enemies that are not in neural burst stage, elemental burst stage. Within the skill duration, enemy that has been dealt neural damage by Tragodia will take 10% of his attack as neural damage until it bursts. So let's say there's like 5 enemies, he attacks the first one, another enemy goes across the first enemy, so enemy B goes across enemy A, so now Tragodia prioritizes enemy B, he goes to attack enemy B. Enemy A is still taking elemental damage, neural damage once every 10 seconds until it bursts. Enemies within his attack area will have 50% increased elemental burst recovery time. So usually elemental burst will last 10 seconds. Within this attack area, it will become 5 seconds. This is actually really good, because think of it this way, right? Enemy comes in, elemental burst. 5 seconds has gone by. Within that 5 seconds, they have 3 stacks of paralyze, and hence they can't deal normal attack. Let's say they attack 3 times within that 5 seconds, which is very common, right? That attack speed. So 3 times within 5 seconds, and then Tragodia goes on and do another elemental burst within, like, after the 5 second has passed. Now the enemy is being controlled again. So basically will force all enemies within his attack area to just can't attack at all. That's how good this is, and it actually goes really well with a feature operator, which is the primal caster. But when that happens, we'll talk about it again. They actually work together. So you know how with Virtuosa and Nymph, you want the timing to be paired together. This is different for Tragodia. The increased recovery time is actually better for the primal caster down the road. So that's a really good addition. Now, whenever there is an elemental burst within his attack area, it will also spawn a cage that can block the enemy that is on the tile. And that cage can take 3 hits before it dies, and it's always 3 hits. So think of it this way. Elemental burst triggers, enemy is paralyzed for 3 times, and then they attack the cage for 3 times before that dies, and then they can move on, which means every time they get an elemental burst, they have to attack 6 times before they can move. And within that duration, they would have recovered from their elemental burst within 5 seconds. And then for Tragodia to deal elemental burst again, basically perma-stalling most enemies that can be blocked within this 30-second duration. That is how powerful this skill is, and they won't attack as well because they've been blocked, right? Because they're blocked, they will prioritize attacking. Even if it's a ranged enemy, they will prioritize attacking the cage that is blocking them, and hence you're saving all your operators from range attack as well. Very, very powerful survivability skill when it comes to that front as well. So yeah, just all-rounder, great skill. It's just that nowadays it feels like there hasn't been much situations where you feel like, oh my god, I need this survivability. But trust me, down the road, there is a lot of situations where this skill will come in very handy. So once you get skill to M3, next you will try to M3 skill 3. So that is it for skill 3. Alrighty, now we're at the how would you use him part. So for IS, like I mentioned, I will go with IS straight away, because trust me when I say that if you just grab Tragodia, no matter how bad the run is, like you can have the most unlucky run ever. With Tragodia, at least you will never die. He will just perma-stall all enemies until you can redeploy all your, even if all your operators die. As long as Tragodia is on there, you will just keep stalling the enemy forever and ever and ever until they come back on. So that is how he will keep you alive all the time. He is so easy to use as well. Like you can just place him down where no enemies will come by him, because you know you don't want range attacks hitting him, and then you just keep deploying his summon from skill 2 and you win. You will just stall all enemies until, and you don't even need to deploy other damage operators, because the elemental burst from his skill 2 is already strong enough to kill most mobs. So good damage, good stalling, and all you need is just deploy his summon, and that's all you do. It's easy win. So he's super strong in IS. In daily content though, what I would do is I would bring Tragodia in my usual team, and you know how like sometimes you go into a new mechanic, new event, right? And then this new mechanic that you've never seen, oh my god, an enemy is about to leave, they're about to go into the blue gate. Summon, they walk right back and gets exploded and they just die. Tragodia will save you no matter what the mechanic is, because no enemies is immune to getting like rerouted to go to the summon. There is no enemy that is immune to that, unless like you know those super boss enemies that will just explode once a certain amount of time passes. Yes, he can't deal with those, but most enemies, if they're aiming towards the blue gate, Tragodia counters all of them. All of them. Actually broken. So he's great for normal event content as well. Yeah, CC. Trust me when I say his skill 3 is actually really good for CC as well. His skill 2 and skill 3 both have great potentials when it comes to CC. 100% would pull if you're like a CC guy. You must do the highest risk ever on all CCs in the future. Grab Tragodia. Trust me, it's definitely worth it. And SSS, right? So in SSS, what I would say is, because he's a more, you have to manually deploy his skill 2 summon all the time. If you're an AFK player for SSS, probably not. And if you're really trying to deal damage with his skill 2, also not really. You have to think, right, because in SSS enemies actually scales upwards, and elemental burst deals the same amount of damage, so 6,000 damage all the time. So he's maybe good for like keeping you alive, but he's not really good at dealing with enemies. So you have to put that in mind, and you still have to try and deal damage. So sure, you can add him in, but you can't really expect him to do the damage in SSS. Next up, we have RA. So in RA, what I would really consider him for is, I really wouldn't consider him. So yes, his summons are really interesting. You can summon him wherever you want in the map. That's really interesting. And that can be powerful. So maybe him for RA makes sense. His skill 3 isn't something you would really consider. Like if you want to stall a boss, because his skill 3 takes 40 seconds to charge, what are you going to do with that 40 seconds is a huge problem. So I wouldn't bring his skill 3 just for the boss. But if you're talking about like perma stalling the boss with skill 2, I see some potential in that. So yeah, personally, I'm not that into RA, but I think his stalling might still be good when it comes to RA, because you can just perma stall the boss. If you already have a strategy to perma stall the boss, you can just keep using that. You don't have to grab him for it. But if you don't, he's a great addition to your team if you're a huge RA fan. Personally, I'm not, so it will depend on you. So that would be it for Tragodia. I know that majority of you probably already know how good he is, and you're just watching another video of Tragodia, because who doesn't like Phantom and then now Phantom Altar? so good. Everyone wants him, I'm pretty sure. So I hope that if you were already planning to pull him, I got you even happier to pull him. And if you weren't going to pull him and you listened to my explanations and you want to pull him, congratulations, you made a great decision. If you're like, he's a dude, I don't want to pull, fair point. So that will be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video where I pull for him. Bye.